Okay, I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the minutes from that meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Who else is on that?
I'll second.
Any other questions on the minutes? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Then we go to our personnel.
Yeah.
Personnel. Terry, you are the chairperson.
Yes, I am. Thanks to you, I guess.
You got the lucky straw.
We had a meeting at 8:00 Friday morning, and which meant I missed my exercise at the Y, but nevertheless, it was a good meeting. And we had three issues on the agenda. To vote for vote in favor, or I guess vote it not, but to vote on the 1.23% salary increase for administrative and all other staff. There was a brief discussion on that, and the motion passed, and I guess it comes now forward to this body to respond to. The other two things were basically editorial amendments. First of all, to the non-teacher handbook. That referred to the issue of retirement benefits, basically the severance pay of $113 for each year after they'd served 10 years. And that's all it said. But what we inserted was the phrase on condition that they were of the age of at least 55 years old. And that wasn't hardly controversial at all. And then the next amendment was the teacher's handbook. Teachers are granted, as you know, 2 days personal leave. The amendment to that policy will now require teachers to take personal leave only once on a staff professional development day. There was discussion of that, some disagreement, but nevertheless, that passed. I would say that, just like to say that Joyce does pretty complete minutes, and the minutes that were submitted included a lot of detail that I'm not going to mention in the report.
Okay. Any other questions for Terry? Yeah, Colin, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a concern, and it's about the contentious one, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So when we had the CARES money come through from the government, that money that we chose to spend was for professional development days, correct? And so now we're allowing teachers to then take professional development days and use them into personal days. Are we then
Only one.
Any then,
Passes, yeah.
but then as a result, potentially those professional development days are then being spent, which are funded by the government, as personal days, correct?
Sure. We didn't discuss the source of the funding.
Well,
We looked at the text.
Is it?
We did
okay
have
to
a
make
discussion
point?
about
Hold on, just wait.
whether there
I'll wait till
should be
discussion, then you can.
any personal leave days taken on professional staff development days. That was discussed, and the committee decided to split the difference. The vote was 2-1, and I think there was certainly some sympathy. If sympathy is the right word. Sympathy with the argument that you're making, but they could take both professional or personal leave days up until now. They could take both professional leave on professional staff development days or any other.
Okay.
So the amendment is to like pull back, step one, say, you know, you can take your personal leave days any day you want, except you can only do it once on a professional development.
And that is under new business, is that right? Number
That
three?
is under new
Okay, so we'll
business.
discuss that again. Stacy, what did you want to add?
That's all I wanted to say,
Oh, okay,
that we didn't have to have the discussion right now during this.
okay,
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
thought,
that's
yeah.
under new business.
I missed that.
yeah, that's all right, yeah. I would just entertain a motion to approve the minutes, in a second.
I'll move that we approve the minutes from the meeting. Second.
Any further discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those are carried. Then we'll move to the report of the superintendent. And I believe we have our personnel report. Is Joyce here? Is she on somewhere? And you should have in your board book the list of changes
Yeah.
to our personnel.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So as Mr. Nichols said, the board personnel report has been or is in board book, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. You can see there's quite a bit of hiring going on. But are there any questions from anyone that I can answer?
Helen,
Yeah, I have just one, there are, you know, I see that there's, 5, resignations, I just want to be, we are doing exit interviews on these individuals that do resign, correct?
Yeah, so one of the things I talked about at the Personnel Committee meeting last week was last year we started, and this year we will do it again. Any of our, the group we're focusing on, at least right now, is our teacher group. So any teacher, whether they resign or retire, will be sent a exit interview survey. And we'll continue to do that with any additional resignations over the summer. And then I will report back on that through the Personnel Committee in early fall.
Thank you.
and of course, Joyce, those are voluntary, correct? So we're at the mercy of the employee to participate.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Joyce, I don't know quite if I'm following protocol with bringing this up right now, but I'd like to make the suggestion that for exit interviews, that we do it through our third-party school perceptions rather than doing it directly from the school board or the school district. I believe that way we may get a better picture of why people are retiring or maybe not retiring, but resigning or leaving our school district. Especially if some people have a fear of responding. I think having that third party would be suited best for us, for the information we're looking for.
Of course, that would be a budgetary item, have to go through finance, so,
Okay,
because there would be a cost. They're not gonna do it for free. So.
right, but we use them for all kinds of other surveys, so it just
Right.
logically would be the place we would go to for that. So where do we start with bringing that up?
Bringing that up at finance
At
and budget,
finance?
and then
Okay,
it would have to be attached to the budget because we're increasing our costs, so.
okay, thank you.
I think Joyce pointed out at the meeting or in the minutes that retirements are almost dead on what they have been
How
the
about
last few years. So there's no precipitous
not with retirements?
jumping ship here. So, no.
But they may at least have a good perspective of what's going on in the district, so they would have some maybe good information for us. But where are we with resignations as far as in the past, in compared to the past?
Yeah, that was something as well that we talked about at the Personnel Committee. So when you get an opportunity, if you look at the meeting minutes, you will see that as of last week, we've had 10 retirements, which is very consistent with the last couple of years. And so far, we've had 13 resignations. Again, I believe last year there were a total of almost about 28 resignations. So again, time will tell over the next few months how many additional, resignations we will get. But 10 teacher retirements, and 13 resignations as of last week.
I had read that actually, but you did not make the comparison about where we were at last year with this year with, as far as resignations, you did with retirement, so that's why I questioned it.
Yeah, again, I think last year we had 28 total resignations.
Okay, thanks, Joyce.
Joyce, I just have we can talk about this another time, I guess, but one of the things that struck me in your report on people that we've hired, everybody hired now is a woman. Are there any men still left in education that are, hireable?
Yeah, certainly we have a
David
variety,
Young, I'm sorry.
we have a variety of individuals that are applying for our positions.
Okay, I just wondered if
I think it's fair to say in our education model that our elementary schools are typically 80-20 in terms of female to male, and as we go to middle school and high school, that shifts a bit. But I think we could probably do some research, but generally, historically, about 65% of all professional educators in public schools are. So 65 to 45 is a pretty general line. Mostly
Okay,
because of heavy elementary one.
sure.
I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the personnel report.
Motion.
In second.
Okay.
And any other questions on the personnel report? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Okay, then we'll move to this implementation plan of ESSER federal stimulus funds.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to take some time today to just kind of talk a little bit about the process and communications that we've been working on, specifically surrounding spending some of our ESSER dollars. So over the past months, we've talked a little bit about what the district is anticipating receiving, and to some extent, what some of those categories that we can spend the resources on. So as a group, we worked hard on trying to create some criterias, and with those criterias were, first of all, a plan that would align to the spending. So understand that we're right now talking for the most part about CARES 3 dollars, and the district's anticipating $7.3 million of eligibility to spend over the course of 3 years. The one thing that we have to keep in mind is that if we hire staff, we have to have an exit strategy after year 3, because we are either going to then absorb that spending in our budget or lay the individual off. And so each one of our plans as we move forward had to have a plan specifically how much it costs, what the goals were for each one of those positions, and whether or not that position would be funded after year 1, just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So the example that we talked about at the last board meeting was using some of our CARES dollars to add 2.5 days to our school year. We've budgeted that for the first year, but we don't have an ongoing plan. We'll see what that looks like. Whether or not we would use that for year 2 or year 3 is still debatable, and we have to kind of work through what that looks like. So with that model, we've used some numbers to separate specifically the spending. Part of that is the management of the money. So when we're talking about $7.3 million, it's a lot of money. We also know that we can't supplant current spending. So we can't just say, well, we're going to take a percentage of our teachers and use that money that we already had to supplant that money. We have to use that for the mitigation strategies, for improvement of our instructional practices, for professional growth, to reduction of learning gaps, recruitment and retention of staff. Those 6 topics that I articulate there is where that comes from. So what our model is, and this is what I would call our own model, it's not one that the government says, is that our goal is to look at potentially spending 25% of that dollars in year 1. So I say year 1 begins July 1 of 2021 till June 30th of 2022. The rationale behind that would be that we have a lot of things going on. We knew that we had a referendum that we had to talk about, whether or not that would pass. We've had a lot of changes within our health protocols and just kind of working through that. We want to make sure that we're doing this well and doing it correct, rather than trying to spend all of it at once. Some of those resources then could be moved forward into year 3, year 2. And so in this model, if you took 25%, in theory, you could say we're going to add another 25% in year 2 to make it 50%, and then we're going to back down to 25% in year 3, and then move on to 0, right? And those are call those fiscal cliffs that we just have to be aware of. So we've worked really hard at trying to create some plans that would specifically target some of those needs that we've identified within our district. We've talked about some learning gaps that we want to try to attract. We've talked about some of the class sizes that we want to try to affect. We've talked specifically about professional development and coaching that we want. We've talked about the nursing staff that we need to have in place, some of our EL teachers' needs. So I've kind of highlighted some of those in just areas of what we're looking for. Again, in addition to that, there are other resources that the district needs to attend to, and those are based on the health and wellness. So I would say things like air exchange, right? So Univent systems and trying to provide more fresh air within our system that provide a healthy environment is something that is eligible under the system. We have a system, a 5-year capital improvement plan that has some of those things that we would likely have utilized over the course of the next 5 years that we might be able to utilize in this money, meaning that we wouldn't spend our capital on this, we might spend it on something else. And that's legitimate. You can just provide what you're looking for specifically to do. Some examples that we would use for that is Monroe Elementary has some HVAC systems that are, they don't work great, right? Rather than getting all the systems, at times they freeze, then those pipes freeze because of the low volumes and the fact that they were built in not an efficient manner. We could potentially use some CARES dollars to the tune of, we're planning on about $200,000. There's other systems that are in place as well. You have to have HVAC to come in, give you a bid, and then say, I can get the work done. And that work can't be done in November, December, January, February if you're doing HVAC. I would also articulate that it is challenging. I'm telling you, extremely challenging to find contractors at this time. So a lot of that work's going to happen in year 2 because we're getting bids and we need them ahead of time. We could get the work done, but likely it's going to be at an elevated cost and some of these are critical, right? Like we want to get them done, but they're not critical. Some of the other things have to do with staff. And when we talk about staff, it's a simple model. One example is we have one of our elementaries early has 48 kids in a first grade class or first grade, 2 sections. We would 24 in a class. We would implement a process that would add 1 teacher to make it 16 in a class. And by the time those kids got to 4th grade, we would then move back to 24 in a class. That's the system that we would have. Again, some of that moves depending on where the kids go and what it looks like. But I guess I wanted to give you kind of an overview and a flair for what that looks like. Obviously, if the positions were human resources, it would come to the board for approval. The board would approve the hiring of people. But we just kind of want to give you an overview and then just have an opportunity to ask questions, talk about things that I can fill in the blanks and give you any more details or things too.
We don't need to approve the spending though, right? Or the categories or any of that.
No, because I'm not really spending anything yet, right? We're just
Right.
talking about it. So the example would be, if Chris wanted to do some, I think a year ago, we did an upgrade on Washington's boiler. Like, we don't bring that. There's a process that we have for bids that we go through. And the board kind of moves that model. But this is just a general, like, to start talking about, we have a significant number of resources. Those resources can't be used to supplant the spending that we have right now. There's specific details that you need to know that we have to first expend the money. And well, first we have to get approval, expend the money, and then get reimbursed. So we have to have a system in order to do that. So you can't just say, well, we're gonna take $7 million out of our budget and spend it. Well, it doesn't work that way. And know that at the end, that money is gonna go away. And so, if we were gonna add, $7.3 million in staffing, that's a lot of people that we're gonna have to lay off, which would cost the district money in the long run, right? So you have to plan on how we're going to eliminate, if we're adding, or use your fiscal budget to shift the expenses so that you're not going to always lay off or offer part-time.
I have a couple informational
Yeah.
questions. You did suggest that you consider adding to the equity and family engagement staff.
Yeah.
Tell me about what that is.
Sure, so we have, it's an option, we haven't actually provided a job description or anything, but we have about 4 different groups that are working on equity and engagement, right? And so to give me an example, the board has a committee, that's a support committee, what's the term we use that?
Ad hoc.
Ad hoc committee.
No,
Right, and that ad hoc committee has some ideas about some of the things that this committee is recommending the board look at in terms of equity and engagement for all kids. We also have a group that is being trained by the district called The Root, who's providing input on equity and engagement and how we can work through that. We also have been identified from the state and federal government for having a disproportionate number of students of color who are identified as EBD. There's a set aside amount of money. We have a person who is doing that work along with people at the buildings. We also have some goals that we've worked on individually to try to reduce our learning gaps within our, right? What we're looking for is 2 things. One is a systematic model that's not 4 different groups trying to improve our overall equity and inclusion for academic growth and student outcomes. So this person, right, would work on providing a focus, a vision, mission for our district, right? And prior to doing that, I would provide the board with like a job description of what all the details would be. But unifying what our work is and trying to help us support in our individual professional development from our staff perspective, the work that needs to be done, whether that's, we talked, I think, a year and a half ago, a little bit about staff culture and behaviors within our students, right? What does that look like from a lens of equity? And so that's one. And then the other piece is that we have also had some title dollars. And on our title dollars, there's some requirements to set aside money for family engagement, right? To engage our families in the conversations about what we can do best, specifically to help their children. And so those are done in 4 or 5 different measures, right? Somebody might have a math night. We have to just trying to systematically organize so that we have a better vision for the district and kind of flow through that. And that person would be working towards that, those efforts.
Okay, that's great. What's an EL student?
I asked her to put that. So English language learner.
Oh,
So it's someone who's at home, they're not speaking English as a native tongue.
okay. English is a second language.
English, yes. So they changed the English as a second language to this English language learner.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question for you. This is a hopeful question. So with the added expenditures of the CARES money in the next 3 years, will that add into the equation of our spending dollars for state funding down the road? Or is the CARES money then exempt?
Yeah, so
No.
Rich, so let me just give everybody a picture. The more we spend in the Manitowoc Public School District, the more we're aiding. It's a flat out fact of how it happens. We are not gonna be able to spend, because we spend more from CARES dollars, we're not gonna get aided more. That would be ideal, right? Because then over 3 years, we would get aided on that 7.3 million. But, yeah, those powers that be they have accountants too.
Okay.
So-
I was hopeful, but
Yeah, that
it was worth
doesn't happen. Other questions or feedback or comments that I can support?
Okay, move on to the district activity update.
In your mail, and I think it's going to be in an actual letter, you're going to get a invitation to graduation, which is going to be a little different than what we've done in the past. And when I get the final details, I'll share those all with you. So the first piece is, just acknowledging that, yes, I would like to be available to participate, and two, I'm going to accept the parking pass. If you don't say you're going to participate, you don't have to. You can just come and be a part of the audience. We can do that, but you won't get a parking pass, which likely means you're parking somewhere by the Quick Trip.
Yeah.
And when you come a half an hour before graduation, you're gonna have a 45-minute walk. Like, that's just what will happen. So there will be special parking for you. So if you want to come, welcome to do that. I will tell you that the things that will be a little different is that we won't have likely 20 plus people on the stage, and we'll have the board sit in the front where the faculty sits. And if you want to participate in the changing of handing out diplomas, we will do that, but we are likely going to not shake 375 hands. So, it will look similar. It's just not going to be exactly similar where we have this big group. But we'll have student speakers. The board president, myself, will say some words to recognize the great work. The students are getting 5 or 6, I don't remember what it is, whatever tickets they typically have. We're going to walk around like we've done. We've got, flower girls and ushers, and we will have a grand gala, right? It will be outstanding, and it's going to have like 78 with sunny is what Dave Nichols told me it was going to be that day.
Good job.
So we
Changed it.
only need like a little bit of time. I'll have to check with Mr. Tennis. I'll give you some details. There is a rain date because we want to avoid trying to have to do that inside. There would be significant number of people, and I don't know how we would have to narrow the gap, right? Because if we have, and not all kids walk, but if we have, 300 plus 5 people, plus the faculty, plus the band, we're talking about thousands in the gym. And I just don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make a rain date, and we're gonna hope for all great things, okay? So I can articulate, just to give you a quick update on some things that we had prom on Saturday night. It was absolutely the most wonderful Saturday night we could have expected. It was an amazing night. Our kids were amazing. Our staff did an amazing job. And, again, sometimes you wonder how it's going to go. I couldn't have said it. Right? Those kids are awesome. I know Pam was celebrating that last Friday. I believe we finished up our testing. We started testing in February and literally ended up last Friday as the last day of student testing, whether that's for our English language learners, whether it's for the Wisconsin Forward, whether it's the ACT. That seems like it continues to go on for a long time. Continue to have registration for summer school. So I think, again, we're hopeful for that. Continue to make those pieces. We'll send out some communications specifically to our families about what summer school is going to look like and what it looks like moving forward. But, we are 10 or 12 days, I think somewhere in that realm left of school. We do have an opportunity this next couple weeks to celebrate our quarter century club family, our teachers and employees, and our retirees. And so we'll be, if you look around town, you'll see some yard signs of just some celebrations of folks who have given much of their careers in Manitowoc Public School District. We have some cards and a gift certificate that we say thank you for your contributions. We know that the schools also do, or wherever their location, also do something nice for them. But again, a typical year, we have a celebration. We've done it at the YMCA, or at the Holiday Inn, and we hope to get back to that next year, where we have many of our retirees and many of the people who retired before come, and we have our dinner and we speak a little bit about each one. So I do not want to not acknowledge the great work. I know you've heard a little bit about some of those people, and those were teachers that we're talking about. We have people that have worked here. I think there's a counselor at Wilson's 39 years in the Manitowoc Public School District. So we've got some custodians at 43 years. So that is we have obviously some big shoes to fill, but appreciate the dedication to those folks. That's my update.
And then the 2021-22 scholarship recipient.
Yeah, so Lori's gonna pass something out to you, and then I'm gonna ask you to return it to us, because scholarship night is tomorrow night. And so just to kind of give you a little information, the Manitowoc Public School District has historically approved the scholarship recipients of what you're seeing right here. So these are the actual kids and the monies that they're gonna be getting. So what I'm giving you is confidential until tomorrow night. But the process that we have now is a little unique, because if you recall, the board moved the money to the foundation. So actually, the Manitowoc Public School Foundation is now the owner of I think you'd say the owner. They're the ones who manage this money. So I don't need formal board approval to accept the scholarships. And in the past history, we've always required board approval to move the money. Does that make sense? So we're just kind of moving through this process in transition, because we've done this. I just ask that before you walk out the door today, you either leave it at your table or you hand it to Lori. And then if you want a copy of that after tomorrow at 9 o'clock or something like that, we'd be happy to forward it to you. Okay, just, they go on. The scholarship that is there, the scholarships that are there are all, community or there's a local, even the MPSD employee scholarships. Those are all dollars that our kids apply for, and we're so grateful. And at the next board meeting, we'll share a little bit about the actual dollar figures and what goes on. So
We
just
got a Herb Call.
say that again.
We got a Herb Call scholarship.
We did as well, yes, yeah, so, we'll celebrate all those, and, if you want a copy of that, we'll give that, to you after Wednesday.
Okay, anything else for the superintendent? And we will move on to new business, and we have 3 items from the personnel committee. And the first one is a 1.23% increase. That's for all, we already did that for the teachers, right? So
Yes.
Yes.
my agenda here shows teachers, but it's actually the rest of the staff,
It's administrative and
right?
all about teachers.
Okay, so we don't need a motion in a second, but it is open for discussion. Anybody have any discussion they want to add to that? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we'll move on to item number 2, non-teacher handbook retirement payout. Any discussion on that? All 3 of these items have already been approved through the committee, and then we're open for discussion on them. Anybody have any discussion on that?
I'm just curious what the thought was behind adding in the age for retirement benefits, of being 55 and older.
We had an assumption, we've always went by 55. And then, we actually had an employee whom, requested for leave prior to 55. And so we went on past practice and then made sure that
We're putting it right in now.
now we're putting it right in there.
Okay. Thanks.
So someone could meet
It's
the
always
years
been
requirements
consistently,
and not the age requirement, and that
Right.
wasn't the intent of the district.
Okay.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's clear. Then we have the teacher handbook personal days. Any discussion on that item? Colin?
Just to reiterate that, I have a big concern here that we're taking COVID money, that we were allocating towards personal days or towards professional development days. And then those professional days are now being used for personal days. And one of the biggest things that we were stressing was the strength of professional days, the need for professional days. And by allowing personal days on professional development days, it's counterintuitive in my opinion. I don't see the how that can be one way and then not the other. I just don't understand that.
Can I respond to that? I guess believe that every year we have 6 professional development days normally, and then we added 2. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So in the past, we've always allowed teachers to take those days off on professional development days if they so choose.
Mhm.
So, I mean, really, we're not taking anything away. We're actually limiting our teachers to saying you can't take both of your personal days on professional development days. You can only do one. So because we have 6 that existed already.
And I realize that, I mean, in my opinion, you know, they are important. Professional development days are important.
Right.
We're saying that they're important and allowing people to say, hey, you know what, I'm not gonna attend the professional development day. What kind of message does that send? Are we taking those professional development days seriously? Are we really getting behind those professional development days? Are we saying that, you know what, they're optional?
And
One is,
Hold on, let's have one discussion at a time. Colin, you got now.
Yeah, no, I-
I would just, 2 things. First of all, the money that we're receiving from CARES and dedicating that to those, we're not saying October 15th is the CARES day, whereas November 22nd is a non-CARES day.
Right.
So we can't say that's a direct correlation. I think the other thing to recognize is that people don't always take personal days for fun vacations. They take them for funerals, right? They take them for very personal reasons that cannot be avoided. So saying you get no personal days begs them to then take a sick day and lie to the district. So I think that there needs to be some kind of wiggle room for those things that are out of people's control.
So can I address that?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I mean, allowing I realize funerals, that's family medical leave usually, or if it's in your family, or even if it's just a funeral, fine. But, you know, personal days and having a funeral day or something like that, it's still setting something. Those are anomalies in comparison. Having a specific vacation, that's what I picture as a personal day. Hey, I'm not going to attend. That's what I picture as a personal day. So, you know, if they call in sick, then they call in sick, then that's up to them, you know, but I view professional days as they're important. I mean, if we're going to get behind professional development days, they should be treated as such, right? And if you allow a personal day on a professional development day, you're sending 2 different messages there. And I still am,
I
just frustrated with it.
I see merit in your argument. The thing is we are sending the message. I mean, a lot of the professional development days are on Fridays.
Mhm.
So, I mean, as a former teacher, or as always a teacher, I guess, it'd be like, oh God, I could really use a professional development day here. And it's on a Friday, Jesus. There was a real temptation on that. And nobody where I work, bitches about that at all, I guess. But if you're doing a professional development day, yeah, on a Friday, and I think what we proposed, or what corrections or amendment we made to the handbook says, look, this is a signal here that we really take professional development very seriously. So that, but we also take, as Sauer said, we also take sort of some flexibility in real legitimate needs of faculty. So that's why I voted for the compromise. I guess if there was any widespread demonstration of abuse on professional development day cop-outs, I would be the first to vote for no professional development days are going to be used on. But I haven't been made aware of abusing them.
Well, it's my understanding that's why it came up to begin with. But my objection out of committee was very similar to Colin's, is that just a week ago, we battled on this floor that professional development was so important to the tune of $340,000 that we had to add 2 more days. And now you're saying that they can use one of those. So that's telling me that professional development isn't that important. And you're talking out of 2 sides of your mouth. And so I will again vote against this, as I did in committee.
Sure.
Mark, how many people are actually not attending professional development days? I mean, do you have a number?
I do not off the top of my head. I think I could maybe ask Joyce. I'm not sure. We do have, maximum personal days, that employees can take, and I believe that's 8. But I don't know if that is the standard on, professional development days, non-student days. So maybe Joyce, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is that the case for our non-student days, 8 personal days? 8 personal days out in the district?
Yeah, there's a maximum that we allow off on any given day. And I think so I think the idea is they're probably like in any organization, not just unique to a school district. You know, there is a percentage, and it's fairly small, but there is a percentage of teachers who historically use their personal days on staff development days. There's many other employees who never use a personal day on a staff development day, or only if it's a emergency type thing. So we were really trying to find a balance. We absolutely value those days. They're important. You know, what we want to try to avoid, though, is creating a policy saying that you can't use either day because of a small percentage of teachers, you know, who tend to historically, you know, use their personal days on staff development days. So, because there are some situations where teachers legitimately might need one of those days off for some kind of family emergency, or it could be lots of different things. So we were trying to find a balance in saying that moving forward, you know, staff will only be allowed to use one of their 2 days. And again, many teachers won't use any of their personal days on staff development days. So I hope that's helpful.
I mean, just,
Did that answer your question?
I was kind of looking for a number. I mean, are we talking 5 teachers, 10 teachers,
well,
100 teachers?
you need
No more
to
than
indicate
8.
that there's a restriction on how many you can
The
take.
maximum could be 8. Again, I don't know the number off the top of my head. You know, we'd have to look at a specific, like, professional development day, but we did articulate in the committee that we would, you know, try to track to see what that looks like.
So you're saying 8?
8 is the maximum that any day in this school year that employees can take personal days. So
And how many teachers are there?
there's probably 410 professionals that get like personal days. Let's say that teacher.
I just want to,
So only 12.
Terry, just let me
sorry.
just ask, I just want to clear some things up here because I wasn't at the personnel committee meeting, but we allow 2 personal days, right? That's not changing.
Correct.
That's the same.
Mhm.
How many staff development days will we have in the next school year?
8.
8. So they could miss one of those using a personal day. Is that correct?
Correct.
12 could.
With the current language, they could miss 2 of those.
Correct.
All right, so we are at least moving towards
Mhm.
almost making it mandatory to be at a personal or at a staff development. Is that correct?
We're
This language,
we're limiting their options.
right? And we restrict the number of staff members that could use that personal day on any given day.
That hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. Okay, that, I just want to be clear on that. So, you know, I mean, I agree that they should be, I mean, employees should be going to work every day that's possible, right? You know, but we do allow personal days. I mean, that's just part of the deal. We give a lot of employers, you know, have vacation, whatever, you know, days you take off, whatever. So that's not uncommon. I think we're moving in the right direction with this language. If we see that there's abuse of it, we could certainly change it at any time. Anything we approve here can be changed at the next meeting. Remember that. So whether we like it or not now, we can change it a month from now or 2 months from now. I see this as moving in the right direction. So I'm
Without
gonna support it.
punishing 400 other people for the issues of.
Well, I'm not into punishing anybody or penalizing
Well,
anybody, so
but
I don't even wanna
changing the
go there. That's
rules
not the
on-
idea that I have at all, and I don't think it does that. But I think it moves in the right direction. And I understand not all of us are in agreement that we should give any time off. And we do speak about how important those staff development days are. I don't want to downplay that at all, but I'll support this, so. As it's written at the current time.
You know, the other restrictions are that only 12 teachers may use the same day for professional development. So, you know, we're hardly waiting for, you know, full scale use of this. I mean, only 12 members, the teaching staff, may be on personal leave for any given day unless leave is of a family emergency nature.
Colin, go ahead.
The other thing is that on the second professional development day, the teacher has to pay for the substitute.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Not if it's a non-student and not on a professional development day.
Yes. That's pay $100. Part of the contract, whether it's professional development day, whether I'm a teacher who gets a sub or not, just, like, so, for example,
The policy says a substitute. Why would you get a substitute on a professional development day?
Or the appropriate.
yeah, so the rationale behind that would be if I'm a employee, some of our teachers who are in a teacher group, if they are absent, we would not hire to come in, so that you can have us check on you and get some work done. That's unique to this model. Typically, the model of virtual instruction says, here's your assignment, let me know if you have any problems, I'll grade the assignment and send it back, and here's your next assignment, et cetera, et cetera. You kind of work at your own pace. This model still stays within our structural school calendar year, providing you with supports and feedback from MPSD teachers, so we're not sending this out from anybody else. I believe that Christopher Durkis is on our piece here, so I'll pause and see if anybody has questions, things that they're wondering about regarding the contract and some of the changes there to, oh, let me add one more thing. This also would allow us to have open enrollment students in virtual learning. So the legislature did allow school districts to have 100% virtual instruction for this calendar year, for one more year, but you could only have your own kids. And so what we're looking is for more of a long-term plan, rather than saying to a family, well, you can come with us for this year, but next year we don't have it. To create a systematic process that would allow us to take our students and students who might want to come to us from a different district and help, and we could do that by going through and getting an approval from a virtual model from the, by allowing McKinley Academy to do that. So just to set up, Chris, before I get any questions in, the McKinley Academy board reviewed this and passed this on Thursday night. They're bringing this to our board for our board to approve it. We've gotten feedback from the state. Obviously, they have to approve it, but they will based on if the two approves it. And then we would communicate to our families and our constituents that we have a virtual learning model that will be open to students K-12 beginning in September, April, or August 30th. I'll pause there and then say, Chris, if there's anything you want to add or anything, Mr. Durkis, that people want to ask him, or I'll help out in any way I can.
Meredith.
So, just so that I'm understanding it correctly, if there's a child who would typically go to Franklin, who wants to be a virtual learner, then they would be more affiliated with McKinley
And not
and
with
not with Franklin. So there'd be a shifting then of staffing. Yes.
So that will be one of the challenges,
Okay.
specifically with the first year of your virtual is, yes, maybe. If one student, for example, in the 4th grade class leaves Franklin and goes to McKinley Academy, there's not gonna be any shift, right? I still got 19 other kids, I'm not gonna be able to do
If
it.
you have 6.
If 6, then maybe, right?
Yeah.
But for the first year, we have a contingency plan that would, kind of work us through what that looks like. And again, I believe that this is going to be in the long term a real added bonus. We have, as we know in our district, have a significant, I think we're 300 plus out and 100 plus in open enrollment. And many of those families are leaving to go to 100% virtual. Now, whether that's great for all of them, I don't know. I don't probably agree to that, but we do have a model here that can provide some of those options. And if, again, for every student who doesn't leave, that's $8,000 plus to the Manitowoc Public School District that we're not sending out. And so there is some opportunity to sustain some funding. If you have 10 kids, we just saved $80,000 and it's immediate, like we just don't send the money to the school district. So, I think all along, we still have 10% of our population that's 100% virtual. That's where we're at right now. And if that means that we would lose, let's just say, half of them, we'd be talking about 100 plus kids who we'd spend $8,000 to go somewhere else. I don't know that we're in a position to be able to absorb that. That would be, maybe they come back to our schools, but we don't know. So this would provide us the opportunity to provide that.
Yeah, that's smart.
What's the overall cost that they're feeling is going to be associated with going down this road?
The overall cost will always fall under staffing. And so I guess it depends. The cost, if in fact in year one, we can't reallocate staff members, I generally tell you it's about $85,000 per human being, right? Salary benefits. In year two, I'm confident that we'll be able to provide the staffing by reallocating people from buildings and moving people around. So the example I just gave you is that I don't know how many kids in K-5 are gonna come. If there's 25 kids and I'm able to reduce 1 or 2 teachers from our plan to teach this, then the cost will be like, it'll be base 0. If I have to add a teacher and I can't get somewhere else, the cost is gonna be, 25,000 per human that I would have to add to that, or 85,000 per human. So I would anticipate up to 3 FTE in elementary is what our estimate would be. 3 in the middle school, and our high school is maybe questionable. I believe we're gonna get people to fill those roles, right? Like I said, for every 8 kids, that saves us if they're leaving. But I would also tell you, it's possible they don't leave. It's possible that those students we're gonna stay here and just go into Franklin or Jefferson or Milton. I mean, I don't know that. But I do know that there's a risk if we don't offer it, because if they leave, then that's $8,000 I gotta pay to somewhere else. So, and if we can get kids back, even if I only get 10 kids back from Wisconsin Virtual Academy, right? I mean, you just start doing the math, right? That's the 1 FTE easy, and 10 kids, but teachers can handle that. But it just depends on where they come from.
So you're saying it's 85K funding from state per student is kind of what your ballpark figure is?
No.
Am I hearing it right, or am I?
So the 85,000 is what we identify as salary benefits for 1 teacher.
One teacher?
Yeah, it's generally, I would tell you that it might be a little bit high, but by the time you do the salary, the benefits, the FICA, the, Wisconsin retirement, all that, I'd rather be a little bit high. The $8,000, actually it's like $8,200, is what is the district pays if you leave us to go to open enrollment. So if I go to Wisconsin Virtual Academy, for every student that leaves us, whether it's Wisconsin Virtual Academy, POE School, Valders, Michigan, Two Rivers, it's about $8,200. So that's where those monies come from. It doesn't affect our third Friday count really. That's a different model, but that's how that money goes.
So I hate to be taking up all the time,
No, that's all right.
but so your anticipation is three students at the lower grades, 3 at junior high, and
3 teachers.
3 teachers at elementary, middle school, and then upper grades as indeterminate. So that would be 30 kids you're anticipating for the return on that investment, correct?
I would think we're gonna have more than that. I mean, honestly, we have over 200 plus now in virtual, but again, yes, that's why I wouldn't be coming to you if I didn't think we could.
Yeah,
pull
I
it off.
understand, yeah.
But I can't, until we say we have it, I can't get commitments from anybody. And it's easy for people to fill out a survey and say, yep, I'll do it, right? I need you to actually enroll. And that we really can't get people to actually enroll because we cannot provide a virtual academy, state won't allow us, without this model.
I actually think this is an exciting opportunity. We talked about this last year with going virtual and how well we did it, and saying there's great potential here with being able to teach virtually for kids. There's a lot of kids out there who this will serve well for. And aside the pandemic, there's a lot of kids who don't want to be in school every day or can't learn that way. So I just see this as a great thing that we've talked about. We kind of mentioned that something like this could happen this year. And I think it's great that we're latching onto that opportunity for kids.
Right.
How would you deploy support services like EL or special ed or?
So we've had we've had many conversations. I say I'm speaking for a group of mighty folks, Christopher, Durkison, and Jason, and Pam, and Joanne, and Joyce have done great work on kind of what this plan looks like along with McKinley Academy. So again, if it's virtual, it depends on how many, right? We would likely assign a person, whether it's part-time or of their job duty or all of their job duty, to work with that. We've talked about what this counseling look like, right? Mental health services. So McKinley Academy has a staff and they have people, and so they would be a part of this, right? But in addition to that, we likely will have to add staff. The amount we add will be directly correlated with the amount of students who are going to enroll. Some of it, again, if I get 12 elementary kids and, maybe we can make that work with one teacher, but, we'll have to see what that looks like. I can't really have a part-time person because we're asking for synchronous instruction at all times. So we have some structures that we have in place and what it would look like. And I'm articulating again, we have some contingencies for funding if in fact we can't make it a status quo, and I'd share that with you where we're at. But right now, I won't know that until we roll it out. And so there's going to be risk. In year 2, if you just use Franklin, because we've talked about it, if Franklin has 35 less kids, I'll reduce their staff applicable and shift that resources. But I can't shift the resources right now because they still have all those kids until I know. Right now, we're counting them all, that 100% of our population is accounted for in one of our buildings. If they come from Lincoln, we can shift Lincoln staff. But right now, I don't know.
Would we be able to, so given the numbers on the 8.2 per student, you got all those numbers, and, obviously if there's you're having 200 sitting in virtual right now, so say another district does not take up that cause of having a virtual opportunity, can we absorb those students to increase then therefore our funding and kind of grow our district as a result?
So there's definitely a opportunity here for us. In year 1, I would say we're not going to try to get to 500 kids, right? I mean, just start ready for that. But in year 2 and 3, I see an opportunity not from just our area schools who might want to send. I see opportunities for maybe some families who've been homeschooled, and this is a different model than what they have access to in virtual schools, because Virtual Academy says, here's your work. If you have questions, let me know. We'll work together individually on things. This is school virtually, so a little different model. So some people might not want that. But yes, I see us, best case scenario, right? We're going to promote and advertise. We're going to reduce, first of all, the number of kids who are leaving us to go somewhere else virtually. That will help our bottom line, absolutely. There are also kids who are going to other school districts virtually, right? And we might then gather some kids who are at other school districts who want to go to e-school, whatever. We haven't been in a position in this district to really aggressively recruit open enrollment. We have had definitely some positive feedback. I think the college here now in Rising Phoenix has brought a lot of eyebrows around in our community that people are like, wow, that sounds like pretty good. And I've heard a few kids are coming. So I think the strategy long-term, Colin, would be first, let's manage our own people. And second, let's get people from outside our district to narrow that open enrollment gap that we have.
Yeah. Anything else?
One last question.
Yeah.
Is there any expanding cost about the $85K per teacher that would be associated to that? Because obviously labor lines are the biggest factor. Is there any technology updates, any buildings that,
Right now, we have outlined places for those faculty members to be at Stengel Learning Community. We have a couple other facility pieces. Our nurses and technology people are there, so there'll be some little bit tighter spaces. The students would be assigned Chromebooks, much like they would be assigned Chromebooks within our district now. The probably expense might be if there's some hot spots, meaning that there would be families who wanted to do virtual and they don't have Wi-Fi that would allow that, and we would provide that now. I would tell you that there's going to be some expenses, but the expenses for someone who is not attending is likely not going to be greater than one who is attending. That makes sense, right? You don't have field trips and recess duties, and you're not coming into our facility, so those costs aren't going to be greater than if you did. That makes sense.
I think I was on the McKinley board for a long time. I think this is really a good move. I think it will help that whole program in ways that that'll be good for the whole Manitowoc Public School District. I know contracts are contracts, I remember days where there was quite a bit of rumor around that McKinley was gonna be shut down, and this was maybe 5, 6 years ago. And, the other thing that we really worried about over there was enrollment. And of course, this virtual thing would help enrollment a lot, but statements like McKinley Academy this is for termination, has insufficient enrollment to support continual operations as a charter school is a bit vague. That results in a kind of a judgment call on that, and I have no idea how we can, set that criteria by being precise at all. But it is a kind of a loophole that, well, what's sufficient and what's insufficient enrollment? That the definition
Right.
of this. And the other one is enrolled pupils fail to make sufficient progress in attaining educational goals. Well, how many pupils and how failing do they have to be, et cetera. Is there a reason for any concern on that?
Well, I would just hold up here, what we're looking at is modifying the contract, looking at a virtual option. The rest of the contract, we haven't been looking at. If you want to make an amendment to the original motion, we can do
Yeah,
that.
no,
But we should not be getting into a discussion of the entirety of the contract, since that's not the point of the discussion. But if you want to make an amendment, then we
That's a
can
good
start
point.
discussing
That's a
that,
good
yeah.
point.
We do discuss the contract when it comes due, or when it needs to be, as is the case here. All we're really looking to do is add this virtual model to the current contract and not change other language. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would want Chris to
Because
speak.
that's what was approved by the McKinley board.
Yeah, I would want Chris to speak. There may be some other technical pieces in here that, I think that he could speak to, if there is that. Chris, are you in the call today, or?
I am on the call, thank you. So there are a few changes in the contract. The McKinley board took up those changes. The goals would be more expansive for a K-12. The old contract was looking really at a 9-12 system. So changes like that actually make it go from kindergarten through 12th grade. So there are a few areas in there that were tweaked and adjusted to make sure that it met the state needs and also the virtual language. So they're small pieces, but the McKinley board did look at those on Thursday and approved to make those changes to go forward to you as well.
I would just add, Carrie, to your point, those pieces were a part of the original contract and have not been changed for several revisions of the contract. That language has been in there for many years. A couple of other things that have changed, and it's because the virtual nature of it, we do have to add a parent advisory council, so you'll see a reference to that in addition to the governing board, and that's because of the requirements of the state to have a virtual option. There is also a requirement for us to indicate how a student would be removed from the McKinley Academy for lack of engagement in a virtual model. And so that language that's in there related to that is what the state has really guided us to in terms of how to do that process. It's not quite as hard and fast, and the state has indicated that's okay because you want the school to have a little bit of flexibility to work with the student, but within certain parameters. So we tried to mirror the language that the state was really recommending. And then, much of the rest of the contract, as Chris indicated, is just an update to that K-12 model. So looking at curriculum, it's going to be K-12 instead of 9-12. So there's a little bit of a difference in terms of some of those pieces. The other piece to mention is that it is open to all students. There is no criteria because we are doing a virtual option. We need to remain open to all students. And so that piece is a little bit different, but the board will have the opportunity to look at maximum and minimum enrollments to help with some of what you were asking about, Carrie, as well.
Okay, yeah, again, it's all related to the virtual, change to a virtual model. So there did need to be some language changes that were in other parts of the contract. So, any other discussion? Not, we haven't even had a motion yet to approve it, so I need a motion in a second.
So it would just be making a motion for the.
To
first.
approve the changes to the McKinley contract.
I would make that motion.
I'll
Is there a
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. Then we have our superintendent evaluation, and, I guess we changed our process policy on that, so we have to get that started. We shortened up the time, I guess, that we can do that, after an election, which makes it a little tight. But, I suppose our next meeting will need to, put that on the agenda, right? That sound right?
Yep.
And we'll likely do it in closed session. At least that initial discussion portion of it. And then we may come back out in open session after that or do it the next meeting. But we'll want to do it in as short a time frame as we can, possibly. That would be a good idea.
If you're looking for information on the process, look at policy 1240. And that outlines
Okay. Yeah.
This will be the-
what we're doing.
the substantive portion of the review.
Mhm.
And we changed some of these things.
Yeah, we changed the way we did it, and we're doing it now rather than later in the year.
Right.
You know,
But a more informal one is done in February.
Yeah.
And now the formal one is being done at the end of the school year. So again, look at policy 1240 in the documents, and that'll kind of outline what we have ahead of us.
And if you have questions on it, you can, get back to me and I'll get you stuff. I've been part of it for almost 9 years, so I got a good idea how it works. Okay, then we have our future meeting dates. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting would be Tuesday, June 8th at 7 o'clock. I know that Angela is putting together a finance and budget committee meeting. Are there any other committees that are planning on meeting? Any of our chairpersons know of any meetings that we're planning?
No.
Anything for building and grounds,
I don't know anything about building and grounds. Angela just sent out the budget committee.
finance and budget?
Yes,
Yeah.
our first one will be June 2nd, I think.
Is that June 2nd? Okay. Yeah, I did see an email there. I just
Yeah,
didn't
there was an email
have a
sent
chance
out,
to open it up.
and she's actually laid out all of the meetings for the next.
We also have an expulsion hearing that would probably be coming up. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That
Yeah, it
maybe-
looks like
Maybe holding that. depending
that
on the
information-
circumstances.
3 o'clock on Thursday, the 17th. And again, we'll provide everybody with the information.
Shut the data.
It's decided.
Okay.
Well, I'm just looking at the poll here.
Yeah, right.
It looks like the poll says that's the one that I got okays.
What was the?
I'll give it to you. Right now, it's tentative the
We just need at least
17th
four
at 3
people.
o'clock.
either, yeah.
But, again, I will definitely walk everyone through what you need to do and what you need to know. And again, I would just ask you to be patient because I can't give you the details of what you have to do because one of the questions the attorney will ask is, you have a preconceived knowledge of what happened and can you be impartial? So I'm trying to make sure you can be impartial so that you know what.
It's a legal hearing and we'll have someone here who will be considered a fair hearing officer
Yes.
essentially. And they will take testimony. And so it's best for us, not to come in with a preconceived, it's just like you wouldn't, it's just, you're essentially going to court.
Jury
Yes.
And yeah, same thing, jury duty, yeah, so it pretty much, you can ask questions, but it's best not to make statements. But that would just be some advice that is in our best interest. Because
Well, good.
that
I will-
person may be represented by an attorney, and that attorney will look for ways to take advantage of any statements we make. So, yeah, just like we were in court hearings. So.
And the other piece.
And I'm not suggesting people have been in court hearings, so.
Right, then the other piece would be June 11th is graduation, so again, we'll send out some information. If in fact we see that we're going to have a forum, we'll just want to publish that in our community. And your role would be just to hand out the diploma to somebody, an empty diploma, please.
That's a 1 o'clock start time, so we're looking at like 12:15.
I would say you're gonna want to be in the area of Abe
Mhm.
by 12:30. Right, everybody knows where I'm talking about, that area of Abe Lincoln where the statue is, the circle.
And the parking is up on top there.
Yeah, the parking is up on top of it,
Yeah,
so you'll, again, you're gonna get something in the mail. You wanna come, right, fill that out so you can get parking.
Mhm.
That'll be important. It's a great thing, beautiful.
Can I just verify the June 8th meeting is at a 7 PM start time?
That would be a 7,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Anything else for the good of the board here?
Yeah, Dave, I was just wondering, are we gonna have a meeting at all for determining board goals at some point? We didn't get to do that last year because of COVID.
I talked to Mark about that, and we will plan on something this summer.
Okay,
Yeah, we didn't set a time or date for it, but we, at our last meeting, we discussed that we will do that,
okay.
but I just don't know for sure when. It'll be July or August. Okay, I would entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, if you haven't done so, leave your scholarship, please.
Mark, are these all of the scholarships?